Hello, everyone. Welcome to the dark side. I'm JVL, here with the mistress of despair, my friend, the Bulwark's AB Stoddard. AB, it happened. It happened. DeSantis pulled the plug. He waited till 4 days after I had said he was going to pull the plug, probably on Wednesday, the 17th. He waited until Sunday, the 21st. I was off by 4 days in my prognostication. My apologies to readers and listeners about that. And he did it in such a way as to inflict maximum damage on Nikki Haley. And he didn't even wait until after New Hampshire to endorse Trump. He just did it. And he did it, 1 week after saying how dismissively, you can be the worst Republican in the world, and so long as you kiss the ring, Trump will say no. And there he is, just kissing the ring.
It was deeply pathetic, but it was exactly what we expected. I mean, we knew he wouldn't do it in an interview. He wouldn't do it on a stage like Chris Christie did with his supporters all around him. He panicked the night before, and we were all, obviously everyone on the internet was guessing about him canceling things and what that meant. And they towed the line, the staff did, for a bit. And then he made his little X video where he's looking really cheerful. And you can tell the language he used about Trump is like, I have to do this, so I'm going to rip the Band-Aid off, and I know I have to do it, but I'm going to just still try to keep my dignity by letting people know that I'm just doing it because it's a pledge that I made, and he wasn't good on Dr. Fauci or whatever. It was so pitiful, but it was, I guess it surprised me that the reference to Nikki's warmed over corporatism. I guess I just sort of didn't really expect that. There was no need to take a parting shot at her. You just endorse Trump, say he's ahead, it's time for the party to unite. But he had to do it, and as you said, inflict maximum damage. So the 6% he has in New Hampshire will go to her. Will go to Trump and hurt her. So I'm actually relieved it's over. I really couldn't take it another day. And he has, we'll never have to deal with him again. There's literally no hope for him. There's no donor who will ever give him another dollar. I don't know about his wife, but it was just beyond painful. Just beyond painful. Since he announced
his super PAC will have burned through together $250 million in order to get, I don't know what, 17,000 caucus votes in Iowa. That's it. I mean, it's an astonishing burn rate. It's like the Theranos of campaigns. And I look at, but here's the thing. I have the shameful joy because Ron DeSantis is a bad person, and seeing bad things happen to him comes with a little joy, but it is bad for America. Yeah. It would have been much better, as terrible as Ron DeSantis is, and as authoritarian curious as he is. It would have been better for America if he had been the Republican nominee. I wouldn't have voted for him, but it would have been better for America. Same thing with Nikki Haley, right? We are another step closer to the abyss with this having happened. And that's bad. Yes?
Yes. What alarms me is I listen to, and I recommend everybody today or tonight, listen to Tim and Sarah do their focus group of New Hampshire voters. And what alarms me, and I heard, and then it was the same response that I heard from a radio host in New Hampshire this morning on CNN, is that voters will say that they're sort of still shopping around, and they don't want to vote for Trump, but they don't really know about her. I mean, at this point that JVL, that we are dealing with people that don't understand that you just have to vote. You have to throw everything at him and try to stop him now, or this is forever. And so it's so interesting listening to those voters on the focus group podcast. Like, well, I mean, yeah, I don't really trust her. Well, none of us trust her. But as you just noted, it would be better for the country if she was the nominee. And not that voting for her in New Hampshire makes her the nominee. There's no hope for that either. But it is. It's just so alarming that people don't see that they would still cheer on the death of the DeSantis campaign because they want Trump, because they think that's like super great. And that helps Joe Biden. And we know, just how fragile this whole situation is, and how much of a shot Donald Trump has. So yeah, I didn't want to listen to Ron DeSantis for the rest of my life, but of course it would have been better if he was the nominee.
Preferred. I mean, look, if for no other reason than the fact that Ron DeSantis was never going to be able to create a cult of personality around himself, right? I mean, if Ron DeSantis had been president, he would have, I think, wanted to push in an Orbanist direction. And he would have been more competent in certain ways than Trump. But on the other hand, he was never going to inspire people to like lay down on railroad tracks for him.
Right.
What do you think about, have you seen, there's been a lot of coping happening from the DeSantis people in conservative media. And the line they seem to have settled on is that it's the Democrats' fault and the never-Trumpers' fault because they're the ones who are desperate for Trump. And I take this line of argument somewhat seriously because I yelled and screamed about it like a year and a half ago when I saw like one person, I think it was Howard Dean, was the one Democrat who was saying, better to get Trump because we can beat Trump. And I was like, you're crazy because Trump can absolutely, this is back before there was matchup polling when people were like assuming that Trump couldn't win the presidency. Right. I said, you're crazy. He can absolutely win the presidency. And B, no. It's not better. We would all be better off if it's whatever other Republican, even if that Republican then has a slightly better chance to beat Biden. And the fact that this projection that these people do, where, their guy loses, they lose because the conservative media, as DeSantis said, acts like a Praetorian Guard around Trump, and because Republican primary voters want the stuff and want the indictments and they want the authoritarianism and they want all the worst stuff. And then their response is to blame like Democrats, never Trumpers, when the whole reason Nikki Haley is viable in New Hampshire is because never Trumpers and Democrats are supporting her. Right. This is the thing is about, it's not even like that the anti-Trump thing is an alibi. It's also exactly wrong and false. That drives me insane.
Yeah, we've talked about this before. You've written about it before. It drives me completely bonkers because it's always never Trumpers. It's always our fault. And then they get, like you said, then they say, see, Howard Dean, the whole Biden campaign, they're begging for Trump. But it is the coup. It is the cruelty. It is the criminality. It is the corruption. It is the sadistic streak. It is Trump that they want. And they're mad that the base of the Republican Party has so drastically that they feel like they have to, as you said, project it out somewhere else. And they can't go out and say explicitly he got too many indictments and that's why we lost. But they're going to always blame this coalition of us joining with Democrats. And it's the one thing that these Republicans can't say is that their own voters have gone mad. And I do recommend everyone for a good laugh today, see JL Covan's Ron DeSantis Dropout announcement. He does a great job. He's in the white boots. He does his voice perfectly. And you will enjoy it. He says that he at some point he came to realize the futility of moving on. And then he said, of course, Republican primary voters don't know what the word futility means. But you got to blame the Democrats or never Trumpers. And then you have to still say, like Senator Judd Gregg, former senator from New Hampshire, said on CNN today, we just lose with him. He loses independent voters, and it's not good to have him atop the ticket. You could never give the real reason why the party should have walked away from him years ago.
Yeah. And also, again, I am sorry, but that is a piece of political and electoral analysis is absolutely wrong. What we have seen both of the times Trump ran at the top of the ticket was that he absolutely helped down ballot Republicans outperform. Yeah. Because what he does is he brings in a bunch of non-traditional voters, meaning Cletus, who wouldn't show up if he wasn't on the ticket. Mm-hmm. And these people pull the ticket for him. And then but even though you do lose a bunch of traditional Republican voters who won't vote for him, those people still show up and they vote Republican down ballot. This is why, again, the idea that you can slip and slide your way around the moral case for Trump by pretending that he's bad for politics. I'm sorry, it doesn't work. That's one of the reasons Trump is so dangerous. Right? If only it were true that Trump makes it so that they can't possibly win. But that's not how it works.
If only it were true that Trump lost by 7 million votes and not 444,000 3 years ago, because he so almost won. And you and I were talking all that time and writing and obsessing over the country's witnessing of his response to COVID, knowing when they went to the polls, they knew that he had told Bob Woodward on February 7th that he knew it was really, really dangerous. And then he lied to us for 2 more months or more while he wouldn't give us tests, and the disease spread and killed thousands of people. And the American public, like a lot of them knew that, and it was fine. And anyway, Democrats really have to integrate that. Democrats working for the Biden campaign, that it was a near miss, and that's sobering. They will walk on glass to get to the polls for him.
Yeah. So I got a question about the indictments. So another line I've seen is the well, if it weren't for Alvin Bragg, then DeSantis would have won. And I'm interested in that as an argument. And for one thing, it's something I wrote about at the time. I said one of the tensions we have as we're prospectively looking at a former president being criminally indicted. I said, so what if, let's just pretend for a minute that we live, I come back from the future and I say that there are 2 timelines in front of you. And in the first timeline, Trump gets indicted, but the indictments then fuel a comeback for him and help him win the nomination. But in the other timeline, Trump doesn't get indicted, and he then fails to win the nomination. Both of these have trade-offs, right? On the one hand, it's good to not have Trump be the Republican nominee. On the other hand, it is not good for a guy to break the law as seriously as he has and then have there be no criminal, no even attempt by the state for a reckoning of justice. And so I take that stuff as a serious question, but I think at the end of the day, I don't know that you can make a serious case that absent the indictments, Trump wouldn't have won. Especially, he led wire to wire. He led by, no fewer. I think the closest ever was 35 points nationally, I think. And DeSantis was a terrible campaign, right? Trump not being indicted doesn't fix any of DeSantis's problems.
400%. He would have been the nominee without any of those indictments. I thought you were making the argument that the Alvin Bragg one created the narrative for them all to say, bookkeeping error. Oh, another one. This is a joke. They're coming after him. They're trying to savage him. They've always tried to take him down. And then they get to lump them together in this soup of just Stormy Daniels and maybe E. Jean Carroll, but not real crimes. You could make that argument that it made it easier. And actually, that is my concern with the general electorate among the slice of ill-informed voters who will decide this election, who might say, well, I heard something about a campaign finance thing with this porn star and that DA, he pledged to take down Trump, and this other one in Georgia did the same. It's all political. That is concerning to me because I think if you start with the Mar-a-Lago case, right, and then the January 6th case, Republicans are just left with their mouth open trying to defend it.
There'd be something else, though, right?
So
there's always an excuse.
I understand. But no, there's no world we could live in which he wouldn't have been indicted. That wouldn't have been good. And he always was going to be the nominee.
Yeah, I think that's right. So Nikki. So tomorrow's New Hampshire, and I was looking at a bunch of Chris Sununu film earlier this morning, and it struck me that over the last 3 days, every time Chris Sununu does a media appearance, he talks about how New Hampshire is not a must-win state for her,
right,
and that she has already won because she's shown so much growth, and she's really assembling more support, and that's going to slingshot her into South Carolina. And I'm sorry, but when your chief surrogate is running around the weekend before the election saying that you absolutely don't have to win here, don't worry, you've already won by showing up. The real, the friends we made along the way were the real victory. That means her internal polls show that she's getting smoked. Right.
Right, and which wouldn't surprise us. And she herself said she needs to be close. And I think that, I think that both of them are looking for their next job. And they are going to be not true Trumpers unless she turns around. I mean, she did say there were some green shoots, JVL. She said that Biden and Trump are equally as bad. She said some things now that will be harder to walk back, that we can't have a president that's obsessed with dictators. I mean, she's definitely been more explicit than I thought she would be. Doesn't mean that she won't end up as
She
VP.
did say that she wouldn't run for president if he was running, and she walked that one
Okay.
back.
It's not that I trust her.
I think she'll be okay.
I'm just saying that I think that if you're her and she has Ken Langone and Stanley Druckenmiller holding a January 30th fundraiser for her to get her through South Carolina, and you have these rich people coming to you saying, you must keep going, we must stop Trump, and you're having the time of your life, she and Chris Sununu are going to just keep on going because they're in with the right crowd and they're going to be assured a nice future. And I kind of decided it's like just good for them. Like they just know that Trump won by almost 20 whole points, just shy of that in 16. He's going to win a good, maybe historic margin in New Hampshire. But even if he doesn't, he's going to slaughter her in South Carolina. It's all going to come to an end. And
Nevada. Don't forget Nevada first, right? The Nevada Party caucus.
Yes.
It's set up. He's going to win 98-2 because of the way that caucus is structured.
So there's this is going to end soon. She can drag it out another month if she wants to. But which, you and I thought a couple of weeks ago, maybe she wouldn't dare to do that if she was really, hell bent on VP. I think that they know what's going on. I think you're right about the internal polling. They're lowering our expectations. And I think that they're having a really good time. That's what I think of Sununu and Haley.
I don't know. It's I think the idea of going to the state where you were governor, elected governor twice, to lose by 20, to have events where the people who used to vote for you show up and are like cursing at you and calling you a globalist cuck. I think the prospect of that is very, very tough.
Okay, so she's out next week.
I think she's likely to be out next week or late this week. Frankly, I don't know that there's much incentive, right? If you know you're going to get out before Nevada, then you don't want to do it the first day or two of. But like, how long do you really want to linger around? Because every day your phone is off the hook with people calling you, and you've got the money people who don't have any skin in the game because they're just rich people. Maybe they're saying like, sure, keep riding this horse. But then all the politics people are telling you, you got to get out now. Don't want to make enemies. You got to, we're the rest of us. Everybody else is rallying around the nominee. Yeah. And you don't want to be. Nikki does not strike me as somebody who has ever been okay with having the music stop and not having a seat.
I see her lapping up the spotlight. She has her canned lines about the fellas are going to fella. And she's sort of doing the dance. And she very much looks like she adores the attention. And I think she's bought into what the donors are telling her about what a great political performer she is. And it is a performance. Because she's not a leader and she's not genuine. She's not authentic. But I think she's enjoying like the fact that she's, making good laps around the course. And so that's probably it, right? It's a combination of people, like you said, who it's fine for them to just push her to keep going and saying, I'll send a check. But it's hard for me to picture her going into like full rebel isolated stance, which is what it would require.
Yeah, I don't think she can do that. Okay, I want to talk about Asa Hutchinson. I stirred up the most comments we've ever had on a triad last week when I banged out like a quickie 500-word thing from an airplane because I was outraged on behalf of Asa Hutchinson. Asa ran a very honorable campaign, seems to have been a pretty good governor of Arkansas, all things considered, was one of the bright spots in Republican politics in dealing with COVID, was not a crazy COVID person, worked very well with the Biden administration. In fact, Asa Hutchinson thanked the Biden administration early on for depoliticizing COVID and was like, you weren't seeing a very good working relationship with the administration. He drops out and the DNC puts out a one-sentence statement just joshing on him. They're like, Asa dropped out. We didn't even realize he was still in the race. And I wrote 500 words basically saying, knock that off. Do better. We need every Asa that we can get, and we ought to be courting the Asa Hutchinsons of the world, not laughing at them. And also have some respect that this guy, if you're a Democrat goofing on Donald Trump, that's great. That's a whole career for you. Asa Hutchinson blew up his entire life to do this, right? And nobody was asking him to. It wasn't like there was a big groundswell of people saying, Asa, you're the only one who can do it, right? He just stood up because he thought it was the right thing to do. The next day, the Biden administration chief of staff calls up Asa's people and apologizes. Once again, Joe Biden, all of his political instincts are perfect. The guy really, Joe Biden, great president. I'm sorry. Again, nobody's more surprised than I am. If you'd come to me in the mid-1990s and said, one day Joe Biden's going to be the best president of the modern era, I would have said, really? That guy? But here we are. Anyway, and then Asa over the weekend is asked if he'll be voting for Biden, and he says, not going to happen. Good for him for endorsing Nikki Haley. But this is Asa. What are you doing saying not going to happen? Why isn't it going to happen? Joe Biden is where you are right now. As a matter of morality, do you guys disagree about marginal tax rates? Yep. Are you going to have disagreements about some federal judges' appointments? Yep. But on larger questions about foreign policy, fiscal sanity, those sorts of things, Asa and Biden are, they're basically the same, right? And very disappointing of Asa to just write off the idea of voting for Biden. I feel like Asa should be one of the guys like Liz Cheney and like Chris Christie who shows up on stage at the Democratic National Convention and says, look, I'm not switching teams. I'm still a Republican. I'm going to vote for other Republicans everywhere else I can. But, at the top of the ticket, we can't do this again. We saw what happened, and I'm voting for Joe Biden. That's what he should do.
Yeah, I was so frustrated to see that because he didn't even wait. He didn't even say, well, we're going to have a different outcome because New Hampshire voters haven't weighed in yet, and it's going to be great. He didn't even punch it the next week. He just came out and explicitly said no, and he hasn't given us a reason. And it's just, as you pointed out in your triad, I think the most salient point is that sacrifice he made, that he turned his life upside down.
Yeah.
And lost peers and is probably, his kids are probably facing harassment. He comes from the most red of red corner of this country. I mean, one of them. And to do that to yourself is really hard. And he did it just to do the right thing. And so the idea that he would stamp his feet and say, I'm a Republican, so I'm not going to vote for Joe Biden is silly at this point. But maybe he comes around. We have to hope that, that he's sort of waiting to take shelter over the summer and not have people throw stuff in his kitchen window. I don't know. And that he'll come around. I mean, Liz Cheney, as I've mentioned, she seems to have shown some leg. I think Chris Christie, if he gets enough phone calls from the White House, from the campaign, will come around. But yeah, it's really frustrating because you either are saying it's all about the rule of law, or you're saying it's about the marginal tax rates, right? So he chose to campaign on the most important thing, which is the protection of our system. And then it's just he doesn't really have a room to back down.
Yeah. Asa, gotta do better. We're at the margins of 11,000 voters in Georgia. And so nobody has any idea what input moves, 4 figures worth of voters in Fulton County, right? Nobody knows if it's Chris Christie endorses him, Chris Christie endorses Biden and that moves 3,000 people in Fulton County, or, Asa endorses and that moves 400 people. Like the margins are really, really, really thin. And so these things could matter. AB, I'm guessing give me this, odds that when we do this again next week, Nikki Haley is still in the race.
20%.
Good luck,
30?
America.